When my son told me I wasn't welcome at his house for Christmas, I smiled. Yeah, I actually smiled. Not because it was funny. Not because it didn't hurt. But because in that exact second, something inside me finally snapped into place. You know that feeling? When the last piece of the puzzle clicks and suddenly everything makes sense. That. He didn't even look me in the eyes when he said it. We were sitting in his living room. Big house. Tall ceiling. Fancy tree in the corner that probably cost more than my first car. Soft yellow lights glowing like some magazine cover. I had just said, I can cook this year. I'll make that turkey your mom loved. Silence. He shifted in his seat. Then he said it. Dad, you won't be coming for Christmas this year. Just like that. Like he was telling me the weather changed. I thought I heard him wrong. I'm sorry. I asked. He cleared his throat. My in-laws are coming. And it's better if you don't come. Better. That word hit harder than anything else. Better for who? I looked around that living room. The couch I helped pay for. The floors I covered when money was tight. The kitchen upgrade I funded because laminate wasn't the vibe. Every corner of that house had my fingerprints on it. But I wasn't welcome in it. Funny how that works. I didn't shout. Didn't argue. Didn't beg. That's not my style. I just asked quietly, so where do you think I should spend Christmas? He said maybe I could visit someone else. Or we could do something later. Later. Like Christmas was a dentist appointment you could reschedule. That's when I realized something. I wasn't family. I was funding. And there's a difference. I stood up slowly. My knees aren't what they used to be, but my pride still works just fine. I walked toward the door. He called after me. Dad, don't take it personal. Don't take it personal? My own son telling me not to take rejection personal. I almost laughed. At the door, I paused. Didn't turn around. Just said calmly, tell your guests I said Merry Christmas. Then I left. The air outside was cold. Real cold. The kind that bites your face. I sat in my truck for a minute. Just breathing. Hands on the steering wheel. No music. No phone. Just silence. You ever realize in one moment that you've been playing yourself for years? That was me. For 5 years, I had been sending them money every single month. Mortgage help. Utilities. Short-term support. Emergency cash. Every month. Same amount. Like clockwork. I told myself it was temporary. I told myself that's what fathers do. I told myself one day he'd look back and understand. Nah. What he understood was this. I would always pay. That's on me. I drove home slowly. Past decorated houses. Families laughing inside warm windows. Kids dragging inflatable snowmen across lawns. I felt empty. Not angry. Not yet. Just done. When I got home, my phone buzzed. His wife. Of course. I let it ring twice before answering. She didn't even say hello properly. Just jumped in. We need you to pick my parents up from the airport tomorrow. No apology. No softness. No are you okay? Just instructions. I leaned against my kitchen counter and closed my eyes. You just told me I'm not welcome in your home, I said calmly. And now you need a ride. She sighed like I was the problem. It's not a big deal. Don't make this dramatic. Dramatic. See, that's the thing about people who use you. The moment you hesitate, you're dramatic. The moment you question it, you're sensitive. The moment you say no, you're selfish. I asked what time the flight was. She told me. Then added, wear something decent. Something decent. I almost laughed again. I said, sure. And hung up. After that call, I didn't cry. I didn't punch walls. I didn't drink. I walked to my desk, opened a drawer, and pulled out a folder. Every bank statement from the last 5 years. I had kept them. Don't ask me why. Maybe some part of me always knew this day would come. I sat down and started adding numbers. Month after month. Year after year. The total made my stomach turn. It wasn't just help. It wasn't just support. It was my retirement. It was my savings. It was money my late wife and I had built slowly, brick by brick. Gone. And the craziest part? They still look down on me. That's wild. You can take someone's money and still feel superior to them. That's talent. I stared at the total for a long time. Then I picked up my phone. Called the bank. Calm voice. Hi. I need to cancel an automatic transfer. She asked if I was sure. I said yes. Effective immediately. Click. Just like that. 5 years of bleeding stopped in 30 seconds. No yelling. No revenge speech. No warning. Just silence. Sometimes power isn't loud. Sometimes it's a button. The next day, I did not go to the airport. I made tea instead. Sat in my chair. Turned my phone face down. And let it ring. Once. Twice. 10 times. I knew what was happening at that airport. I could picture it. Angry faces. Confused looks. Blaming me. But here's the thing. You don't get to exclude someone from your table and then use their gas money. Nah. Not how that works. Around evening, someone started pounding on my door. Hard. I opened it. They were furious. Shouting. Calling me disrespectful. Saying I embarrassed them. Embarrassed them? I just looked at them quietly and said one sentence. You told me I don't belong in your house. So why would I show up for you? Silence. You ever notice how quiet people get when you speak truth without raising your voice? It's like it confuses them. They threatened me. Said I'd regret it. I nodded. Closed the door. Locked it. And for the first time in years, I felt peace. Not joy. Not revenge. Peace. But I didn't know yet. They weren't done. And neither was I. Because 3 days later, I saw my face in the newspaper. And that's when I realized. They thought they could play dirty. They forgot who taught them how to survive. And trust me, what I did next changed everything. You think missing an airport ride was bad? Nah. That was just me warming up. 3 days after Christmas, my phone started ringing again. Not once. Not twice. Non-stop. Messages. Missed calls. Voicemails stacked up like unpaid bills. I didn't rush to answer. See, when someone tells you you're not needed, you don't jump the second they change their mind. You breathe. You observe. You let them feel the silence. That silence, it's loud. Real loud. I was sitting in my chair by the window, the same chair I've had for 15 years. The cushions a little worn out. The wood scratched. But it's honest furniture. It doesn't pretend to be something it's not. Unlike some people. My phone buzzed again. This time it was a voice message. I played it. His voice. Tight. Controlled. Trying not to sound desperate. Dad, we need to talk. Need. Interesting word. Last week I was optional. Now I'm needed. Life moves fast, huh? I didn't call back. Instead, I made breakfast. Eggs. Toast. Black coffee. Slow. You ever notice how when you stop reacting, people start panicking? That's exactly what was happening. By afternoon, there was a knock at my door. Not aggressive this time. Soft. Careful. Like someone knocking on a hospital room. I opened it. There he was. No confidence this time. No chest out. No big house energy. Just a man who looked tired. He stepped inside without waiting for permission. I didn't stop him. I just went back to my chair. He stood there for a second like he forgot how to talk. Then he said it. The bank called. I didn't answer. He continued. The mortgage payment didn't go through. Silence. I thought maybe it was a mistake. I sipped my coffee. No mistake, I said calmly. He blinked. What do you mean no mistake? I cancelled it. Simple. Direct. No drama. His face changed. You could actually see the realization crawling up his spine. You can't just do that. I looked at him. Can't. He started pacing. We have bills. We have responsibilities. You know that. Yeah. I know. I knew every single month for 5 years. I let him talk. Let him list expenses like I wasn't the one who had been covering half of them. Finally, he stopped. "Why would you do this?" he asked. There it was. The question. Not "Are you hurt?" Not "Did we mess up?" Not "Are you okay?" Just, "Why would you stop paying?" That's when I leaned forward. Because I don't pay rent for houses I'm not allowed to enter. His jaw tightened. This is about Christmas. About Christmas? No. It was never about one day. It was about 5 years of being treated like an ATM with a pulse. But I didn't say all that. I kept it clean. "You made it clear I'm not part of your household," I said. So I removed myself from the expenses. He rubbed his face. "You're overreacting." Overreacting. That word again. Funny how boundaries look like overreaction to people who benefited from your lack of them. He tried a different angle. "You know we can't manage without your help." There it is. Truth. Not love. Not respect. Dependence. I nodded slowly. "I believe you." He looked confused. "Then why are you doing this?" Because sometimes the only way a grown man learns to walk is when you stop carrying him. But I didn't say that either. Instead, I said, "You'll figure it out." His tone shifted, anger creeping back in. "So that's it? You're just abandoning us." Abandoning. That word hit me for a second. I remembered nights I worked double shifts. I remembered selling my watch once to pay his school fees. I remembered skipping vacation so he could have new shoes. Abandoning? No. I raised him. Now I'm releasing him. Big difference. I stood up, walked to the door, opened it. That's when he realized the conversation was over. He didn't move at first. Then he said quietly, "If we lose the house." I looked at him straight in the eyes. "You won't." Confidence. Not arrogance. Just knowing something he didn't. Because here's the part they didn't know yet. That house was still partially under my name. When they first bought it, the bank required a stronger financial profile. Mine. I never removed it. Never transferred fully. They thought I did. I didn't correct them. Sometimes silence is protection. He left. Frustrated. Confused. Slightly shaken. Good. That night, I got another call. This time from his wife. No attitude. No commands. Her voice was softer than I'd ever heard it. "We didn't realize you were feeling hurt." "Ah. So now we are feeling things. Progress." I didn't respond immediately. Let her sit in that sentence. She continued. "We just thought you understood." Understood what? That I was useful but not welcome? That's a weird thing to understand. She asked if we could all sit down and talk. I said maybe. Not yes. Not no. Maybe. Control is quiet. And I was done being the loud giver. A week passed. No payment from me. No airport rides. No favors. And suddenly, they were struggling. Bills stacking. Credit cards stretched. Pride shrinking. Funny how fast things change when the backup plan retires. Then one evening, there was another knock. This time, both of them, standing together. Not angry. Not loud. Just small. He spoke first. "We were wrong." Simple words. Hard to say. She followed. "We should never have excluded you." I looked at them. Really looked. For the first time in years, I didn't see authority in their eyes. I saw fear. But also something else. Understanding. He cleared his throat. "We've been relying on you too much." True. We got comfortable. Also true. She added softly, "We forgot what you've done for us." That one hit different. Because it wasn't about money. It was about memory. Respect. Acknowledgement. And that's when I realized something. This wasn't about punishing them. It was about resetting the balance. You don't destroy your own blood. But you also don't let them step on your chest. So I told them calmly, "I won't restart the payments." Their faces dropped slightly. "But," I continued, "I will help you restructure." They looked confused. "I'll show you how to manage. I'll guide you. But I won't carry you." Silence. Processing. Then slowly. They nodded. Because deep down, they knew this was fair. Not revenge. Growth. The next few weeks were different. We sat at the table. Went through budgets. Cut unnecessary expenses. Sold things they didn't need. Pride swallowed. Reality accepted. And something strange started happening. They began calling me, not for money, but for advice. They asked before making decisions. They listened. Really listened. And for the first time in years, I felt like a father again. Not a sponsor. Not a wallet. A father. One evening, my son came alone. Sat across from me quietly. Then said something I didn't expect. I didn't realize how much pressure you carried for us. That sentence. That's worth more than 5 years of transfers. He looked at me. I'm sorry. Not dramatic. Not forced. Just honest. And that's when I understood something important. Sometimes people don't disrespect you because they hate you. They disrespect you because you never showed them your limits. I had trained them to expect endless support. So I changed the training. Simple as that. Months later, they invited me again. To dinner. Not because they needed something. Not because a payment was due. Just dinner. I went. The door was open before I knocked. The tree lights were up again. But this time, there was a seat waiting for me at the head of the table. Not as a sponsor. Not as backup. As family. And when my son poured me a drink, he said quietly, "Glad you're here." 3 words. Heavy ones. You see, they did come crawling back. But not begging for money. Begging for connection. And that's the only thing worth giving. But here's the twist most people miss. The real change didn't happen in them. It happened in me. Because once you learn to say no without anger, you never become small again. And trust me, what happened the following Christmas? That's where the real lesson was. Because this time, I tested them. And what they did next showed me whether change was real. Or just temporary fear. You think the apology was the end? Nah. That was just the beginning. A year passed. No drama. No shouting. No slammed doors. Just adjustment. They learned how to manage their own bills. They downsized a few habits. Stopped trying to impress people who weren't paying their mortgage. And me. I stayed consistent. I didn't rush back into overgiving. I didn't offer money unless asked directly. And even then, it wasn't money. It was guidance. Because once you become the solution to everyone's laziness, they forget how to solve anything themselves. And I was done raising grown adults. That year, something interesting happened. They started visiting me. Not for help. Not for rides. Just visiting. Sometimes with food. Sometimes with nothing. At first, I didn't react much. I watched. Patterns matter. Anyone can behave for a few weeks. Real character shows in repetition. And slowly, I noticed changes. My son stopped interrupting me mid-sentence. Small thing. But big. His wife started asking, "What do you think?" before making big purchases. Also small. Also big. Respect doesn't shout. It whispers. Then December came again. Same cold air. Same decorated streets. Same smell of winter in the wind. And I'll admit something. Even though I act calm, I was watching. Because talk is easy. Holiday behavior reveals everything. 2 weeks before Christmas, my son called. Not a message. A call. "Dad, we want you over for Christmas dinner." Simple. Direct. No hesitation. I didn't answer immediately. Let the silence stretch just a little. Then I asked calmly, "Who else is coming?" He didn't get defensive. My in-laws. My wife's cousins. A few friends. Pause. "And you?" He added that last part slower. Carefully. "Good." I said, "I'll think about it." And I meant that. Because forgiveness doesn't mean automatic access. It means observation. 3 days later, his wife came by alone. Sat at my table. Hands folded. No attitude. She said something that surprised me. "I was wrong last year." Not we. I. That's growth. She continued. I treated you like you would always adjust. I didn't respect your feelings. I didn't smile. I didn't soften. I just listened. She looked nervous, like she was waiting for judgment. But I don't enjoy humiliating people. That's weak behavior. So I asked her something simple. If I say no this year, what happens? She didn't answer immediately. Then she said quietly, we'd deserve it. That was the moment I knew something shifted. Because entitlement would have said, but it's Christmas. Growth says, we understand. Now here's where the test came in. I decided to go. But not early. Not to help cook. Not to arrange chairs. Not to serve guests. I showed up exactly at dinner time. Wearing what I normally wear. Nothing decent. Nothing impressive. Just me. And when I walked in, something subtle had changed. The house didn't feel like a stage anymore. It felt lived in. Less flashy decorations. More warmth. And there it was. The seat at the head of the table. Not as a show. Not announced loudly. Just placed there. Waiting. His in-laws greeted me politely. Not overly sweet. Not fake. Just normal. That's all I ever wanted. Normal respect. Dinner started. Conversations flowing. People laughing. And at one point, his wife's father asked me, so how did you manage to retire early? Now that's interesting. Because last year, I was just the ride. This year, I was the example. I answered calmly. Discipline. And knowing when to stop giving too much. My son looked at me for a second. He understood that line. Everyone else just nodded. But he understood. Halfway through dinner, something small happened. One of the guests joked, must be nice having a father who helps with bills. Room went quiet for half a second. I didn't move. Didn't react. This was the test. My son cleared his throat. Then said firmly, my father helped when he didn't have to. And we learned from that. Not defensive. Not embarrassed. Just honest. That sentence. That was redemption. Not begging. Not crawling. Standing. Owning past mistakes publicly. Without me asking. That's when I relaxed. Because respect given in private is good. Respect given in public? That's real. After dinner, while everyone was distracted, my son stepped outside with me. Cold air again. Same as last year. But different energy. He stood there quietly for a moment. Then said, I almost lost everything because I got comfortable. I didn't answer. He continued. I confused support with obligation. That's a heavy realization. I nodded. You're not supposed to lean on me forever, I said calmly. I'm supposed to prepare you to stand. He looked at me. And for the first time in a long time, he didn't look like a man trying to prove something. He looked like a son. That's a different energy. Before I left that night, something happened that sealed everything. He handed me an envelope. I raised an eyebrow. What's this? He said, it's not full repayment, but it's a start. I didn't open it there. I just held it. He added, you gave without asking. Let me give without being asked. Now that's maturity. I didn't need the money. That wasn't the point. The point was awareness, ownership, balance. When I got home, I opened the envelope. It wasn't a huge amount, but it was honest. And attached was a small handwritten note. It said, thank you for stepping back when we needed you to, even if we didn't understand it then. That line sat with me. Because sometimes love isn't stepping in. It's stepping back. Hardest thing a parent can do. Now here's the part most people won't like. I didn't restart the monthly transfers. Not then. Not ever. Because redemption doesn't mean returning to old patterns. It means building new ones. And from that Christmas forward, our relationship changed. They invited me because they wanted me. Not because they depended on me. They called for advice. Not cash. They visited without agenda. And when problems came, they handled them first, then informed me. That's growth. But let me tell you something real. The biggest shift was inside me. I stopped measuring my worth by how much I provided. I stopped equating sacrifice with love. I stopped thinking silence meant strength. Sometimes strength is one word. No. And when you say it calmly, people either walk away, or they level up. Mine leveled up. Not perfectly. Not magically. But genuinely. Now here's the thing you're probably wondering. Did I ever fully trust them again? Trust isn't a switch. It's a process. But yes, I trusted the new behavior. Because consistency is louder than apology. And they stayed consistent. Years later, when people ask me how I won that situation, I tell them something simple. I didn't win. I just stopped losing. Big difference. Revenge would have been taking the house, embarrassing them, cutting them off forever. But peace? Peace is letting people correct themselves after you stop enabling them. That's power. Quiet power. But let me leave you with this. If I had shouted that day, if I had begged, if I had threatened, none of this would have happened. Sometimes the coldest move isn't anger. It's withdrawal. And sometimes the people who crawl back don't come back for money. They come back for guidance, for structure, for the presence they took for granted. And when they do, you don't slam the door. You just change the rules. Because access to you is a privilege, not a lifetime subscription. And trust me, the real lesson wasn't about Christmas. It was about boundaries. Because the moment you teach people how to treat you, you change every future interaction. And what happened the year I fell sick? That's when I found out whether their change was permanent or temporary. You think respect lasts without testing? Nah. Life always sends another exam. It started small. Just fatigue. The kind you brush off. I'm getting older, I told myself. My knees hurt more than usual. Climbing stairs felt heavier. Even making tea felt like work some mornings. I didn't tell anyone. Not because I'm dramatic. Because I'm not. And I don't like being treated like glass. But one afternoon, I stood up too fast. And the room tilted. Not a little spin. The kind where your body forgets which way is down. Next thing I knew, I was on the floor. Cold tile against my cheek. That's when it hits you. You're not as solid as you thought. I stayed there for a minute. Just breathing. Then I laughed. Yeah. Laughed. Because life has a sense of humor. One year you're cutting people off financially. Next year you can't even stand straight. Balance. I didn't call my son immediately. I drove myself to the clinic the next morning. Slowly. Hands tight on the steering wheel. Tests. Blood work. Long waiting room. Doctors speak in calm voices when things aren't simple. I don't like calm doctor voices. They said it wasn't critical. But it wasn't nothing either. I'd need monitoring. Medication. Less stress. Less stress. I almost smiled at that one. If only they knew. Now here's where the real test came in. I could have kept quiet. Handled it alone. Stayed proud. But pride is expensive when you're sick. So I called him. He answered on the second ring. Dad. Something in my voice must have shifted. Because he asked immediately, "Are you okay?" Not annoyed. Not distracted. Present. I told him what the doctor said. There was a pause. Then he said something that caught me off guard. "I'm coming over." Not "do you need me to?" Not "should I?" "I'm coming." That's different. He arrived in 15 minutes. No dramatic entrance. No panic. Just focused. He looked around the house. Quietly. Checking things. Like he was measuring the space. He asked about medications. Appointments. Insurance. Details. He wasn't playing hero. He was stepping up. That matters. That evening, his wife called. Soft voice again. "Can I bring dinner?" I said it wasn't necessary. She said, "I'm already cooking." No argument. Just action. An hour later, she showed up with food. Not fancy. Not showy. Simple. Warm. Homemade. That's when I noticed something else. They weren't treating me like a burden. They were treating me like responsibility. There's a difference. A burden feels heavy. Responsibility feels chosen. Over the next few weeks, they rotated. Doctor visits. He drove. Pharmacy pickups. She handled. Groceries. Already stocked before I asked. And the interesting part? I never had to beg. Never had to remind. Never had to guilt trip. They just did it. That's growth. Because real redemption isn't words. It's behavior when you're not being watched. One night, I couldn't sleep. Pain in my chest. Nothing dramatic. But enough to scare you. You know that quiet fear? The one you don't say out loud. I picked up my phone. Looked at his contact. Paused. Then called. He answered immediately. Dad. I said, I don't feel right. No hesitation. I'm on my way. 10 minutes later, headlights outside my window. He didn't complain about work. Didn't sigh. Didn't mention inconvenience. He just helped me into the car. Calm. Steady. Like I used to do for him when he was small. Funny how life circles back. At the hospital, while we waited, he said something quietly. I should have realized earlier how much you were doing alone. I looked at him. You were busy learning. He shook his head. No. I was busy taking. Honest. That's the word. Honest. I didn't respond. Because sometimes silence lets truth settle deeper. Here's what most people won't admit. When you get older, you're scared. Not of death. Of becoming irrelevant. Of being tolerated instead of valued. Of being managed instead of loved. And I had felt that before. Last Christmas, I felt invisible. This time, I felt seen. Different feeling. Stronger than pride. A few months into treatment, I improved. Slowly, energy came back. Strength returned. And I noticed something subtle. They weren't helping out of fear anymore. It became normal. Routine. He'd call just to check in. She'd send food without making it a big deal. No one kept score. That's important. Because if help comes with a scoreboard, it's not love. It's debt. And this time, there was no debt. One evening, while sitting outside, my son joined me. We didn't talk much. Just watched the sky change color. Then he said, when you stopped paying for everything, I thought you were punishing us. I didn't interrupt. He continued. But now I see, you were preparing us. I nodded. Dependence feels safe, I said. Until it makes you weak. He looked at me. And when you got sick? I waited. He swallowed. That was my turn. Simple. Balanced. That's all I ever wanted. Balance. Now here's the part that surprised me the most. One afternoon, his wife said something while washing dishes at my place. I used to think you were too quiet. I raised an eyebrow. She smiled slightly. But now I understand. You were giving us space to show who we are. Exactly. Because when you react loudly, people focus on your reaction. When you step back, they face themselves. And that's uncomfortable. Growth lives in discomfort. By the end of that year, I was stronger again. Not perfect, but steady. And something had changed permanently. Not just in them. In me. I wasn't afraid of saying no anymore. But I also wasn't afraid of needing help. That's real strength. Knowing you can stand alone, but allowing others to stand with you. And let me tell you something real. If they had failed that test, if they had ignored my calls, if they had treated my illness like inconvenience, I would have closed the door completely. No drama. No announcement. Just distance. But they didn't. They showed up. Without being forced. Without being paid. And that's when I knew. The redemption was real. Years pass fast when peace is involved. We still disagree sometimes. Still argue occasionally. But the foundation is different. Respect sits underneath everything now. Not money. Not obligation. Respect. So when people ask me, did they really change? I tell them this. People don't change when you scream at them. They change when they feel the weight of losing you. And they step up because they want to. Not because they're scared. And trust me, the day I updated my will, that was the final proof. Because what I did with that document showed whether I fully trusted the new version of them. You think redemption ends with apologies and hospital visits? Nah. Real trust gets tested in ink. And what I wrote in that will, that's a story on its own. People talk big when emotions are high. I've changed. I understand now. I'll never do that again. Words are easy. Ink is not. When you write something down legally, when you sign your name under it, that's different. That's commitment. A year after my health scare, I booked an appointment with my lawyer. Didn't tell anyone. Didn't announce it. This wasn't a threat. It wasn't leverage. It was clarity. See, I'm not afraid of dying. I'm afraid of leaving confusion behind. I built everything slow, careful, brick by brick, and I wasn't going to let old patterns sneak back in just because things felt peaceful. Peace without structure. That's temporary. I sat across from the lawyer. He asked simple questions. Who inherits what? Who manages your affairs if something happens? Any special instructions? Special instructions. I almost smiled. Life had already written most of those. Now here's the truth. A few years ago, if you had asked me, I would have left everything automatically. No conditions. No structure. Because that's what I thought love was. Blind giving. Endless access. But love without boundaries? That's not love. That's enabling. And I learned that the hard way. So I did something different. I didn't cut them out. I didn't punish. But I structured it. The house stays in a trust. Funds released in stages. Financial responsibility required. Debt-free requirement before full inheritance. And one important clause. If I'm ever disrespected, neglected, or treated as obligation instead of family, the distribution changes. Yes. I wrote that. Not out of fear. Out of standards. Access to me is a privilege. Access to what I built? Also a privilege. When I finished signing, I felt something heavy lift. Not anger. Relief. Because clarity is peaceful. A few weeks later, I invited my son over. Just him. We sat at the table where we had once argued about mortgage payments. Funny how tables hold history. I slid a copy of the will summary toward him. He looked confused. What's this? My decisions, I said calmly. He read it. Slowly. Line by line. No interruption. No defensiveness. When he finished, he looked up. And this right here. This was the final test. He didn't argue. He didn't say, "Don't you trust me?" He didn't say, "Why conditions?" He just nodded. And said, "That's fair." Fair. That word means everything. Because a guilty mind would have reacted. An entitled mind would have protested. A grown mind understands structure. He pushed the paper back gently. "You don't owe me anything," he said. I studied his face. No manipulation. No guilt tactics. Just maturity. That's when I knew. The transformation wasn't temporary. It was rooted. Later that week, his wife called. He had told her. She said something that sealed it for me. "I'm glad you protected yourself." Not "Why would you do that?" Not "Don't you trust us?" Protected. She understood. That's growth. Real growth. Years passed. Slow. Peaceful. Birthdays celebrated. Small arguments. Shared dinners. Hospital visits. This time for them, and I was the steady one. Life balanced itself. Not perfect, but stable. And that's all I ever wanted. Stability. Respect. Choice. One Christmas evening, years after the first incident, we were all sitting together again. Tree lights glowing. Food on the table. Laughter in the air. But this time, no one was pretending. No one was performing. No one was calculating who owes who. And my son raised his glass. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just calmly. To the man who taught me how to stand on my own. I didn't react big. I just nodded. Because I didn't need applause. I needed understanding. And I had it. Here's what most people get wrong about revenge. They think it's about destroying someone, embarrassing them, making them feel small. But real power is walking away calmly and letting people grow in the space you leave behind. I didn't win because they came crawling back. I won because I stopped allowing disrespect. I didn't force them to change. I forced them to face reality. And they chose growth. That's the key word. Chose. If they had chosen differently, if they had doubled down on entitlement, if they had treated my sickness like inconvenience, I would have walked away permanently. No speeches. No fireworks. Just distance. Because once you learn your value, you don't negotiate it. Ever. So what's the lesson? It's simple. Don't scream to prove your worth. Don't beg for respect. Don't overgive to feel needed. Step back. Let silence teach what your anger never could. The people who belong in your life will step up. The ones who don't will disappear. Either way, you win. Now I sit in that same chair by the window. Older, calmer, stronger in a quiet way. And when I look back at that first Christmas, the rejection, the airport drama, the cancelled payments, the tension, I don't feel bitterness. I feel gratitude. Because that moment forced all of us to grow up, including me, especially me. If you're listening to this right now, and you're giving more than you're respected, stop, pause, reevaluate. You can love deeply, without losing yourself. You can forgive, without forgetting your standards. And you can step back, without becoming the villain in someone else's story. Sometimes the coldest move is simply becoming unavailable. And sometimes, that's the move that saves the relationship. And if this story hit home, if you believe in quiet strength, real growth, and lessons learned the hard way, then make sure you subscribe to this channel.